Above the streets and houses, rainbow climbing high. Everyone can see it smiling over the sky. Paint the whole world with a rainbow.
Hello friends. I'm sure you've all heard about ALBERS' assertion about the creation of double rainbows, the requirement for two light sources. This is pretty much news to the scientific community and anyone who's done basic physics experimentation. And we're going to go back to a gentleman called Theodoric of Freiburg, who was a Dominican friar. And he was around in the 14th to 15th century. And he was one of the first people to give an accurate explanation for the rainbow, and one of the first to give the correct geometrical analysis of this phenomenon, which was probably the most dramatic development of the 14th and 15th century. Drawing from his two earlier works on light and colour, he wrote on the rainbow and the impressions created by irradiance, 1304 to 1311. Relying on geometry, experiment, falsification and other methods, among other properties, he explained in detail the colours of the primary and secondary rainbows, the positions of the primary and secondary rainbows, the path of sunlight within a drop. Light beams are refracted when entering the atmospheric droplets, then reflecting inside the droplets, and finally refracting again when leaving. The formation of the rainbow. He explains the role of the individual drops in creating the rainbow. And finally, the phenomenon of colour reversal in the secondary rainbow. Using spherical flasks and glass globes filled with water, Freiburg was able to simulate the water droplets during rainfall. Still in its early stages, experimental instrumentation would later expand to be used primarily for making measurements, extending the human senses, and creating an isolated environment for the experimenter. During his experimentation with these glass globes, Freiburg was correct in asserting that the colours formed by the interaction of sunlight with water droplets. One of his contemporaries, Kamal al-Din al-Farisi, offered the same experimentally established explanation of the rainbow, without any contact between them. Both authors, however, relied on the Book of Optics by Ibn al-Haytham, who was an Arabic scholar and polymath born in 965 and lived in Basra, Iraq. The theory of rainbow creation was further improved by Descartes in a 1637 treatise, Discourse on Method, which further advanced the explanation. Knowing the size of raindrops did not appear to affect the observed rainbow, he experimented with passing rays of light through a large glass sphere filled with water. By measuring the angles that the rays emerged, he concluded that the primary bow was caused by a single internal reflection inside the raindrop, and that a secondary bow could be caused by two internal reflections. He supported his conclusion with derivation of the law of refraction, subsequently to, but independently of, Snell, and correctly calculated the angles for both bows. His explanation of the colours, however, was based on a mechanical version of the traditional theory that colours were produced by a modification of white light. It was left to Isaac Newton later on, who demonstrated that white light was composed of light of all colours of the rainbow with a glass prism that would separate the colours into the full spectrum, therefore rejecting the theory that colours were produced by a modification of white light. He also showed that red light is refracted less than blue light, which led to the first scientific explanation of the major features of the rainbow. Newton's corpuscular theory of light was unable to explain supernumerary rainbows, and a satisfactory explanation was not found until Thomas Young realized that light behaves as a wave under certain conditions and can interfere with itself. Young's work was refined in the 1820s by George Budel Airy, who explained the dependence of the strength of the colours in the rainbow on the size of the water droplets. Modern physical descriptions of the rainbow are based on Mie scattering, work published by Gustav Mie in 1908. Advances in computational methods and optical theory continue to lead to a fuller understanding of rainbows, which does not include secondary light sources from fantasy systems from failed physicists.
Up above the streets and houses, rainbow climbing high. Everyone can see it smiling over the sky. Paint the